Hi, my name is Andy Torres. I'm the director at the American Embassy School. I'm talking to you my morning, your likely evening, but maybe afternoon or even late evening for you from Oregon in the United States. I asked Mr. Bellamy to give me a little bit of permission to step in early in this webinar today to talk to you a little bit about the opening of the school and the timing and what we've been thinking about around that. There's been so many questions from parents, and I do understand that we live in a time where there are so many unknowns and people are craving for some certainty. And so today I want to make sure that everybody understands that we have decided that we will be opening on August 4, but fully online. And likely we will stay in the online mode for at least, likely up to 3 weeks. We are giving ourselves the space and grace of time, but also we want to make sure that we are acting in an abundance of care to make sure that your children and our community is safe, and our campus and our teachers are ready to deliver on the highest quality programs in the face-to-face environment. As you might understand, we've been working diligently over the past many weeks and actually months to refine our online learning mode and our connected campus programs that we will be delivering to your children from August 4 on for a few weeks will be I think something different. You will see new technologies and new approaches from our teachers, and you'll hear a little bit about that from Mr. Bellamy and his team today, as well as an overview of what the elementary programs will look like once you return back to our campus in a couple weeks. We look forward to and do wish to have all of our students back in our classrooms and in our care. We look to see you on campus. We look to have our community back together. We miss everyone. We miss our programs. We miss everything about what is AES. We believe that we're going to be able to provide a ramp up toward that in the coming weeks so that relationships and care and foundational skills can be built beginning on August 4 and on until we can have everybody come back to campus. Thank you so much for coming today. We do have one more webinar this week, tomorrow, with our middle school team again, talking about middle school literacy. I look forward to seeing you then. But for now, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Bellamy and his team. Thank you so much.
Good day, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending upon where you are in the world at this time. I want to welcome you to our webinar today on the reopening of the elementary at AES for kindergarten through grade 5. I'm going to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Charles Bellamy. I will be the new elementary principal next year at AES. I'm coming to you from Texas, where I've been for the last 4 years. My wife, Michelle, will be joining me. She'll be working in the elementary school. My daughter, Eliza, will be a grade 11 student in the high school. I have had a few international stops along the way. I spent 3 years in Budapest, Hungary as the elementary counselor, spent time in Hangzhou, China as an assistant principal there. And I was a principal at the American School of Yaoundé in Cameroon before we came home to Texas. My family is extremely excited to join such a great community, and I just look forward to meeting you all in person soon. And so I'm going to go ahead and take care of a little housekeeping before we get started on our webinar. And so the chat is disabled. We will use the Q&A today to post questions. We're going to ask you to put one question at a time and wait for that question to be answered. If everyone is posting multiple questions consecutively, it'll be very difficult for us to get to all the questions and answer those questions. The Q&A feature that you're going to use today, because the chat is disabled, you will find here on your screen. You can click on that, and that will be where you can post your questions as we go along. I have some members of our elementary leadership team here with us today, and at this time I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Scott White. I'm the elementary assistant principal, and this is my 6th year in that role. But this is it'll be going into my 16th year at AES. Me, along with my wife, Melissa, who's a 3rd grade teacher, have been teaching in international schools since 1998. And we've been really fortunate to be able to raise our 3 daughters here at the American Embassy School for the last 15 years. Our daughters will be going into 8th grade and 11th grade, and our oldest will be a 2nd-year university student.
You guys, I'm Kelly Arrington, and I will be one of the elementary counselors. I most recently have been in Minneapolis Public Schools, working at an international school there. So I'm really excited to be joining AES. I will be coming with my husband, Jeremy, who is not a teacher, but he'll join the greater AES community. I previously have been a licensed therapist before transitioning into school, so I'm really excited to bring my experiences to AES and be a part of the community.
Hi, I'm John Stein. I'm one of the new counselors for elementary. I'm new to AES, and I'll be joining with my partner, Carly Anderson, who will also be a middle school counselor. Originally from New York City, born and raised. I'm currently in Sacramento, California, staying with some family. And Carly and our last school was in Jeju, South Korea. It was actually a new school, and I was one of the founding school members, which was really exciting. And before that, I was working in a public special education school in the Bronx.
And hi, welcome. I'm Wendy Geyer. I'm the elementary librarian. This is my 7th year at AES, my 3rd year as the elementary librarian. Prior to this, I was a classroom teacher. And I'm here with my husband and children. My husband's a elementary teacher as well, and I have a 3rd grader and a 5th grader in our elementary school. And I look forward to working with you all this year.
At AES, we have a mission statement that we use to guide the decisions that we make. We use this as our vision of what we think we should be. That is on the screen for you now. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I do want to point out a couple of highlights from it. One of them is we believe that students should have a joyful pursuit of excellence in academics, athletics, arts, and service. We think that if we're doing our job well, that students should want to come to school, they should be engaged, they should be excited about the idea of learning and being a member of a community. We believe that they should become responsible, compassionate global citizens. That is another core part of our mission statement. And again, this mission statement drives the decisions we make in all areas of the school. In conjunction with that mission statement, we also have some core beliefs. You'll see those on the screen now. I'm not going to read through each one, but I do want to highlight one of those today in light of the current situation in the world and the concept of kids coming back to school. We believe that students should flourish in a community that is caring. We believe that they will flourish in a community that's caring. And we want you to know that we are particularly aware that kids have, been under anxiety, or there's been things going on in the world that don't feel right. We're committed to, when they come back to campus or come back to whatever format of learning that we have, we want to make sure that it's a warm, caring environment where they feel connected to teachers and their classmates. We have a strong sense of building a culture of belonging, so much so that we added this additional statement as part of what we believe is at AES. What we believe about a culture of belonging is that all members of our school community will actively support learners' academic, social, and emotional growth. And a key component of this is that we believe that if we recognize and value the diversity of others in our community, we're all better for that. And so, you know, and we start that by modeling for students. But it is a big part of what we believe, that we want to be a culture of belonging where we're all working together to help our students grow. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Scott, and he's going to talk to you about the elementary goals.
These goals are the things that we want for your children. If you are a parent, returning parent, you've seen these before and you've heard these before. Number one, we want your kids to love coming to school. We want to build an environment that, you know, they enjoy learning, they feel comfortable. As Charles said, that they make connections with peers and the adults in their life, whether they're in school or online. We want it to be fun for them. This is foundational for everything that they're going to do for the rest of their academic career. So the more that they can, and historically, our kids will tell you when you see them in the hall, they love being here. So that's number one. We want to acknowledge kids for their strengths. We want to see where they are and meet them where they are, and then help them progress. We want them to be intrinsically motivated. We're not a school that gives certificates and stickers. We want kids to love learning and do learning because that's what they're supposed to do. And the reward is in the progress that they're making and the things that they're finding out about and learning more about. Taking risks and making mistakes is such an important part of the learning process. We want kids to do that, whether it's with friendships or with math. If they didn't make mistakes, they wouldn't have to come to school, right? So we encourage this all the time. And in order to develop independence and resilience, they have to take those risks and make mistakes so that they can learn how to do things on their own and develop strategies for you know, getting the job done. And then lastly on here, student, faculty, parent partnership. This is super important because none of those groups can function independently. We need to develop strong relationships with kids and with the parents that guide them at home, particularly in an online environment. One of the things that we're doing, if you have been on campus, you know that, you know, when we're thinking about a love of learning, and we know that learning is primarily social, and communication and flexibility is extremely important. We're renovating our learning spaces so that students have greater opportunities to connect with different adults and students throughout the day. The photos that you see are from the grade 3 learning space. This summer, we're actively working on the pre-K and grade 2 learning spaces, but your children may come into a newly renovated space like this. And again, it's meant to be, to give students opportunities to learn in different ways, that they're learning in a place that's comfortable for them, that they feel good, and that they can connect with their peers throughout the day. I'm going to turn it over now to our two amazing counselors.
Thanks, Scott. So a part of our social emotional learning that John and I will help support is through all those communities that Scott already referenced. So when we talk about that student, family, and faculty partnership, that's true in our work as well, right? So we have the privilege of supporting the students directly, partnering with the teachers, and ultimately partnering with you as families. One thing that's really important to us is meeting students at their developmental stage, right? So we don't just say, well, you're in 3rd grade, so you need this skill set, or we'll support you in this need. We will match your students wherever they are at, and it's really a beautiful opportunity to bring all of those different communities together to find the best way to support that student.
And with the multiple communities that we support, there are multiple ways that support looks like. We will provide from afar individual support. We'll essentially be checking in with students on a one-to-one basis. And of course, parents, if interested, and we could collaborate and communicate on some challenges that might arise in this new form of learning. We will also center our conversations around reflecting on our experiences. I know these are difficult times, and having a person to connect with and to reflect on with is important. And we want to, of course, assess your child's needs and provide support tailored to them. And we could also do this in small group settings. If we see that there's a group of students who are having similar challenges, we could bring them together and have conversations about and give them an opportunity to learn from their peers. And we could also do this, of course, with families and parents and provide you with some more education or support, because we know that this is also a tasking time for you as well. And, you know, we're also available for the teachers, and we want to provide support to class-wide groups, and we will continue to collaborate and communicate with them as well.
And we just want to reiterate that our services and support is ever changing. We're constantly assessing and growing. We want to be as responsive to your students and to you and the greater AES community. We want everyone to feel connected and safe and a part of the community. So in whatever way we can do that, you just be in touch with us and we will help make that happen.
Yeah, and with that said, we have our email addresses on the slide, so please feel free to reach out to us. I know Kelly and I are super excited to be here and to be a part of the community. So yeah, please reach out, and we're really excited to get to know you.
Thank you, Kelly and Jonathan. I want to talk to you for a minute about curriculum, what we believe about teaching and what they need to know, and at a very high level, but I think it's important as parents that you understand some of that right now, and then you'll get greater detail throughout the year as we move through the year. But we believe in whole child education. That includes academics, arts, athletics, and service. It includes social emotional well-being. It includes identifying what their passions are and helping them explore and expand those. We also believe that it's important for our students to have a connection and understanding of our host country. I'll talk a little bit later about one of the programs that we use to do that. But that's part of what we believe, that as a community that's in India, in Delhi, we have a responsibility that our community has a connection and understanding of the community that we live and work in. Our instruction is designed around standards-based curriculum. And what that means is that in literacy, in math and science and social studies, and even in some of the specials, we have a standards-based curriculum where we have identified certain learning outcomes. Oftentimes when we talk about curriculum, we talk about those outcomes in what do we want children to know, and what do we want them to be able to do, and what skills do we want them to have when we finish a certain unit of instruction. Having that sort of clarity around what the outcomes should be allows our teachers to measure growth. We know specifically what we're looking for, and then we assess that in multiple ways, so that, you know, students whose strengths lie in different areas may have multiple opportunities to demonstrate their growth in those standards. But that's the basis of where we start our instruction, is having a clear understanding of what we want students to know, what we want them to be able to do, and the skills that we want them to have. I mentioned earlier that, you know, as part of whole child education is understanding what their strengths and passions are. We refer to these as specials, but we have PE, art, music, we have world languages. And as I mentioned earlier, it's important to us that our students have a connection with the culture that they live in and our host country. So we also have Indian studies. Kids have different strengths, and some kids, their strengths lie in these areas, and we want to provide opportunities to nurture those strengths and have students be able to showcase their strengths and their passions and do things that they love. So we know that in an online setting, which Dr. Torres talked about earlier, this may look a little different than it would in person, but we are planning for adjusting our instruction to provide the highest quality that we can in these areas as well, even if we're going to be in an online setting. We will continue in whatever setting or delivery mode we have for instruction when we reopen on August 4th. We will continue to provide support to those students who need it in the areas of English language development. If they need learning support, we are still going to provide those services, even no matter what mode of instruction or delivery we have. You've already heard from our counselors, so I won't talk about that a lot. They've kind of explained to you what they're about and what they provide, and we'll have opportunities before school starts to visit with you again and provide you greater detail. We do have a school psychologist on staff that helps guide us and helps us identify the best ways that we can support. And again, later as we approach the year, we will provide you more detail around that. But the main thing that I want you to feel comfortable with is, as we adjust through whatever mode we have to based on current reality, that we are committed to providing these types of services to kids as we move along. I'm going to turn it back over to Scott and let him talk a little bit about communication.
Thanks, Charles. Homeschool communication is extremely important, particularly to developing those positive partnerships. We want you to know that when we're in session and we're back on campus, you're welcome on campus anytime school is open. So much of the communication that happens between teachers and parents happens informally. We meet you in the coffee shop in the Tiger's Den, or you're there at pickup and it's possible to have a quick word. But know that you can be in touch anytime. Particularly right now, before we launch back into the school year, that you can contact me and Charles or our counselors or Wendy. If you have questions, if you have a need to know or something that you're worried about, please don't ever hesitate to get in touch. We have more formal touch points. On the very first day of school, we have Getting to Know You Day, which is an opportunity for you to let the teacher and the teaching assistant know anything that's really important to you and your family about your child. We have 2 conference times throughout the year, one in the first semester, one in the second, and then we communicate formally in report card format at the end of each semester. In addition, there'll be regular communication from your teachers in grade level and from the elementary office. But I think the most important thing is that if you ever have a question or feeling frustrated or want to just confirm some information that you have, please don't ever hesitate to reach out. Wendy, to our library.
Thanks, Scott. We are so excited to welcome you and your children to our library this year. We have a well-trained staff of 5 in our library who are passionate about our school, our students, and our school library. As main goals for your child, we want your kids to enjoy reading and to have fun. And additionally, we support all of our elementary students in developing literacy skills and language in developmentally appropriate ways, both in the library and through collaboration with classroom teachers. We enjoy providing rich read-aloud experiences to your children, and also pride ourselves on providing an abundant number of reading resources, whether digital or physical, to support not only your child, but also you as parents. One of the things our library prides itself on is the personal connections we have with our students. And we make those through class interactions, readers advisory sessions, and general library visits. And while we do it, love to do those in person, we do those digitally as well. So please be aware that that will still occur. And additionally, we structure library programs to be exciting and interactive so that students do have multiple opportunities to begin to establish a love of books and to promote their critical and imaginative thinking. There are many opportunities throughout the year to involve students, families, and community members through our library programming. We host events both during the school hours and outside of school hours, from decorating pumpkins as book characters to our annual pancake breakfast with the visiting author to grade level related literacy and publishing celebrations. Additionally, our library is open before and after school to students when accompanied by their parents, as long as campus is open. Our biggest library events each year are our author visits and literacy celebrations. You can see that we have multiple offerings of these opportunities for students each year. And these photos are just from our author events last year. The overarching goal with our programming is to provide exposure to and interactions with books, authors, and literature in positive ways. And this can be done in person, and it can also be done digitally. And one of the ways we are supporting our students and our community is through our library checkout via curbside pickup. I do suggest that you take a moment to take a screenshot of this page. And I can also send the web addresses in the Q&A if you'd like to request that. With our current curbside service, parents and students can request up to 10 items per person from either of our libraries, and we also offer digital resources. And we do anticipate continuing this in the new school year as well if campus is closed. Our ebooks are offered online through the Sora app, and your family can have access to our collection of over 2,500 ebooks and audiobooks through this platform. We hope you're planning, or you already are, taking advantage of these services. And I do invite you to email me directly. My email is on this slide if you have any questions or need any help getting this set up. And now I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Scott. He's going to talk a little bit about technology and makerspace.
Thank you, Wendy. Our makerspace is a natural extension of our library, and it's a place where classes, students, teachers, families can go to create. We want students to have this space so that they can extend their learning in ways that are exciting to them, in ways that they can make a difference in someone else's life. Through service learning or whatever that might be. Our makerspace offers, everything from hot glue guns to green screens to sewing machines. And so kids can really, can get up to a lot in the makerspace. And we want that proximity to the library so that they can go and investigate something that they want to do and then go put it into action in the makerspace. Another extension of the makerspace is technology. And so we have a makerspace tech coordinator that works very closely with Wendy to make sure that we're using technology in authentic ways, that kids are using it for specific purposes, and that it's balanced, right? We have an iPad program in the elementary school from kindergarten through grade 5. We also have iPads available for pre-K as well. We want to make sure that kids aren't on the iPad just for the sake of being on the iPad, but it's intentional, right? They're on their iPad using it for a specific purpose to meet their learning goals. You'll see that again, there are robots. There's a great picture of the makerspace at the bottom. As Wendy said, you can come into the makerspace as well as the library on Saturdays, Saturday mornings, with parents supervising for kids to be able to explore more on their own time. Next, I want to talk to you a little bit about IPOP, which is our after-school activities program. IPOP stands for Individual Power of Passion. Our IPOP program runs on a quarterly basis throughout the year with upwards of 40 to 50 activities offered during any one quarter. And as you can see in the photos, there's anything from Minecraft to handcraft to swimming, athletics offered in any given quarter. There is a hope that we'll be able to continue these even if we are online going into the new school year. More information will come out about that as soon as planning is finished. But these are, again, a great way for your kids to explore their interests or find new things that they didn't know that they might be interested in.
Thank you, Scott. So I want to talk a little bit about Campus Connected Learning, which will be our online platform. I know that we've shared a lot of information with you today, and a lot of it was based around what our normal day, our normal programs would look like if we were all on campus. We thought it was important for those new parents and for everyone else to see, what we normally are. we understand that some of these, if we start in an online setting, some of these will not be available or will not be able to have the same form that they had in a person-to-person setting. So, for example, what Scott just talked about with iPod, we are looking at what we can provide online until kids can come to campus. So we have to adjust. A lot of the work that Scott and I have been doing with the teachers and the faculty has centered around digging through some of the feedback that parents had about their online experience in the spring. And we have identified some things that we felt like were themes that came out of that feedback. And I want to talk a little bit about those and what we're doing to address that and the work that we have in progress. One of the things that came out was sort of the need for a centralized space for for parents to go and collect information about the schedule for that week, about what the kids will be doing, potentially resources that they can use for their kids, the newsletter that we put out, all of that, if we could centralize that in one space for each grade level. And we are working on that. And I'll talk a little bit more about the platform in a minute, because it addresses the other things that we heard in the feedback of having predictability in the schedule, having a schedule that is, steady and predictable throughout the week. Those are themes that we heard. Having resources for kids to maybe do things beyond what might be in Seesaw, and giving them opportunities to do other things. So what we've done is we're looking at creating grade level sites that each parent would be able to access for their grade level, where that information would be housed. The schedule for that week would be updated. We wouldn't have to send you an email. You wouldn't have to wait for an email. You could access that sometime Friday evening for the next week and go back to it whenever you wanted to. And it would be in the same place for each grade level. So for each grade level site, you would be able to go and find that information organized in the same way. Another piece that we got was consistency across and within grade levels about communication, about how things are organized. Again, we think the work that we're doing on these grade level sites will provide that opportunity to keep that consistent, for you to know where to go to look for things, and it'll be consistent across and within grade levels. We also know that time zones are a big issue for delivering an online learning system. We're committed to, in an online format, if that's what we're in, for however long we're in it, we're committed to ensuring that kids have real-time connections on a daily basis with teachers and with other students. We're looking at ways, potentially through grouping, potentially through the way we structure our schedule, to make sure that kids that might not be in India are still getting that daily connection to other students and to teachers. As Dr. Torres said, it isn't optimal. It isn't what we all would wish for. But what we're doing is we're looking at structuring this, developing this, and we'll give you more information on the 27th. I'll talk about some opportunities to gather more information. But understand, we all are working towards the idea that one day we're going to be back on campus, whenever that is, sooner rather than later, we hope. But we are building this in a way that it will be a smooth transition, and our kids will be where they should be when we go back to campus. Future webinars and information for you, July 15th is now, and that is the one that we're in, and I probably should have fixed that. But on July 21st, we will have a social emotional learning webinar where the Student Support Services Group will talk about how we're going to support kids in that area. On the 22nd, there'll be an EAL webinar, and again, for those students that are mastering the English language, we will talk about how we're going to support them. On July 27th, we will have our pre-opening, where we will give you details about a lot that we've talked about will come out in greater detail on the 27th. August 1st, there will be a Setting Up for Success at AES, and on August 3rd, our virtual orientation. And for August 4th, our joyful reopening. On August 4th for elementary, that will be our Get to Know You Day. for our returning students and families, you know that this is an opportunity for each family and student to have some individual time on that day with their teacher, so that the family and student can get to know more about the teacher and the teacher about the student and the family. And then we would move into our normal school structure, whether that be in person, be online, on August 5th. But our August 4th reopening would be our Get to Know You Day. That's the end of our formal presentation. I hope that we've provided you information that's valuable to you, and I appreciate your time, and we look forward and are excited to the reopening on August 4th. At this time, we're going to move to a live Q&A. We're going to spend some time answering those questions that you've posted. But thank you for being here.
So, everyone, thank you again for being here. I want to take an opportunity to talk generally about some of the things that have come across the Q&A. We are committed to, particularly in the first week to 10 days that we will run an online program, we're committed to spending a significant amount of that time creating activities, holding synchronous sessions that allow your students to connect with their peers, connect with our teachers, connect with the people that will be supporting them in that online setting. We understand that that doesn't happen as rapidly in an online setting as it would in a normal classroom. So one of the things that we're committed to is making sure that we've purposely planned and scheduled activities and time at the beginning of the school to foster that environment. There were questions about synchronous and online live sessions versus video lessons. Our teachers, Scott and I have been working with our teachers, and we're still finalizing some of that information. There will be synchronous sessions. There will be video lessons. We are looking for what leading research says about what is the right balance for that. What is the best way for kids to learn in this environment? And we're going to look at that developmentally appropriate at each grade level. One of the things that we are clearly trying to do is trying to provide a predictable schedule. That's, for the instruction in the different content areas, we can do that. We can probably schedule that pretty predictably. When it comes to the one-on-one sessions and the EAL and other supports that we provide, there may have to be some flexibility there. I don't know that we can make that the same time every week at a particular day, but we are definitely working to make that schedule as predictable and as normal a routine as we possibly can for students, because we know that predictability is important to them as it is to you. Let me look at some of the questions. I think we've answered the when we estimate. There's so much that goes into that. I think what we're trying to convey to you today is that we are trying to make sure we're prepared for whenever that option is available for us. We're ready to go. I think, as Dr. Torres mentioned, right now we are going to open in an online setting, but always with the mind of working towards when can we get students back to campus and make sure that we're prepared, that when they do, we're ready. In terms of what will the hours be for elementary and how long will their day be, again, we can't replicate a normal school day in an online setting. We want to provide students developmentally appropriate instruction that allows them to continue to master concepts. I can safely say that our students are not going to be online for 6 continuous hours in a day. We will schedule instruction in a way, again, that's developmentally appropriate and that we feel can best serve the needs of those students. And again, that's going to look different at 1st grade than 5th grade due to their developmental status of what their stamina is, what their ability to focus is, what their ability to manipulate the technology is. We'll be teaching. So will teaching be live or like it was at the end of last year? The answer is yes to both of those. There are some components that will look similar to last year. There will be some components that are different. You know, again, meeting the needs of students across multiple time zones is going to require some level of asynchronous instruction. It may also require that student seeing more teachers than just the one that they're assigned to on their class list. We are working diligently to find the most efficient ways for us to provide equitable access to the curriculum for all students, regardless of time zone. So I don't have a specific answer to that yet, other than to say, yeah, some of it will be like it was in the spring. Some of it will be different. When we, have PE classes taught live and not video, we've talked about that. At this point, I can't commit to that one way or the other, or certainly can't commit to that being all the time. We may have a combination of both. When can we get textbooks and uniform? Scott, the textbook and uniform question, I might let Scott answer that. I'm not sure that we're going to have textbooks, but Scott.
So, Keelan, we don't have a school uniform. We certainly have clothes that students can buy that have AES logo on it and that sort of thing in our school store. But for when students come onto campus, we want them to dress in clothes that they can move easily in. So when they do have PE on a particular day, that they have their running shoes on and they can move around pretty quickly. In terms of textbooks, we don't use textbooks. We have a lot of books, library books in the classroom and in our SUD library that students are able to take in and out of school. But a lot of our learning materials don't come from a textbook. You'll receive more information, and particularly if you're here online and you're in Delhi and there are materials that you need to have, we'll make sure that you're able to pick those up from school, and we'll give you the details around that. But otherwise, we're going to provide lessons in a way that your children have whatever they need at home.
So the question about specials and opting in or out, we would hope that all of our students would participate fully in what we have to offer. I think if you saw the first webinar, I made a statement during that webinar that we certainly understand that every family situation is different in terms of how many students you may have in your household that are having to do online learning, how many parents in the household are working. All of those factors we understand goes into sort of how your student may be able to participate in what we're offering. We're going to be flexible, and we're going to work with you. We're not going to be punitive in some way if a student can't make certain sessions at a certain time or needs to, opt out of a session one day. We're going to be flexible and work with you. Let's see, what about the learning material? Scott, do you want to? I think you answered that earlier, but if you don't mind, if you could address that again.
So again, as I said before, we're gonna plan activities that students have access to materials at home. And if there's anything specific that students might need and you're here in Delhi, we'll have opportunities for you to be able to pick that up from school. But otherwise, we want to make sure that everyone has equal access to the things that they'll need for any lessons that they have.
So Nate has been working with us closely in terms of sort of operational plans about what it might look like. I'm gonna pass that question, Nada, about social distancing and plans over to you, just because I think you've been more heavily involved since the beginning of the planning and want to make sure that we're accurate and consistent.
Thank you, Charles. My name is Nada Collins. I am the former elementary school principal, but this year I'm moving into a new role as a deputy director in a school-wide role, and I'm really excited about the opportunity. So one of the questions that came in was a little bit about information about what social distancing looks like. And I actually said yesterday when we were talking to our pre-K families that I'd really like to rebrand that as physical distancing. Our hope is not that there's social distancing as we move into next year, but that we have ways and strategies to make sure that we keep a physical sense of safety. We know that for elementary school students, that poses a greater challenge. And so looking at ways to make sure that students understand the importance of safety, it's trainable. It is something we can teach your kids. So when we are on campus and when we are together, we'll pay attention to smaller groups and smaller ratios. So especially as we look at the trajectory of the virus. So when we feel the risk is higher, we're going to maybe keep those groups quite small. And as the threat of the risk starts to abate a little bit, as we move through the year, if we find that the growth of the virus is shrinking, that there are recommendations from the CDC as well as from the international consulting agency that was mentioned earlier that's supporting us through our work on health and safety, that there's distances that are appropriate at different levels of threat. And so as we look through that, making sure that we train kids, but they're also, how do we maintain that? We maintain it by keeping them maybe with assigned seating where they might have had a lot more freedom, not moving around as much, keeping them in smaller groups so they're not interacting with across the whole classroom. Training students about responsible mask usage. We're investigating the possibility, I shared the other day about some masks that they actually came out of the community for the deaf and hard of hearing, but they're masks that have a plastic shield in front of the face so that you can see facial expressions, which would be amazing. But also, especially for our younger kids, kindergarten, first grade, for our EAL students, seeing the movement of the mouth is instructional. It's not just about, it's not exclusively about communication, in the sense of, can somebody hear me? It's also about developing those skills in terms of communication. We instruct kids on facial expressions, right? That is something, learning how to read somebody else's. It's part of our social emotional curriculum. So we're looking through a number of strategies that keep our students safe and at the same time ensure that we still are able to achieve those social emotional goals and create a happy learning environment. So all those are components that go into our thinking, looking at limiting directions in certain places so the kids minimize interaction. And by that, for example, might be that we say this staircase becomes an up-only staircase, well, that one becomes a down-only. So kids aren't crossing paths as much, or certain grade levels perhaps only use a particular stairwell, so that if something happens, we're able to reduce the impact if we have to have kids stay home for a little while. As mentioned a couple of times today, we're closely following the CDC guidelines, as well as have engaged with an international agency that's helping guide us, and they have looked through all of our written plans, and they are physically going to walk through our campus with us over the next week via a Zoom, so that they're weighing in on every piece of this, and we're ensuring that these are well-tested guidelines that we're using.
So the question about details about how to use online platforms, I mentioned that we're working on a centralized site using Google Sites to have consistency and information available to teachers across all grade levels that's organized the same and is consistent. A part of that is that we are looking at, on those sites, being able to house resources that are available to parents on demand, even outside the school day. That would include videos or links to instructional videos or troubleshooting videos of how to use the tools that we're asking students to use in this program. We're always going to be available to you as well. If you need help, we will help you. But we are looking at how can we provide you access to information that would allow you to support your kids in their learning with the tools at times when it might be convenient for you, but we might not be within our normal school day. I think I closed the wrong one, but what are some of the physical things? I think Nada just talked about that. let's see, is there a possibility to schedule school days? We have to plan other activities as a kid when we get it. We are looking at having that schedule, you know, the week before school starts at each grade level, nailed down to specific times, the things that we can schedule regularly, consistently at the same time. That's still a process, and part of that process is that we're gathering information and data to see where our families are, which students will be in what time zones, so that we can plan accordingly, again, to try to provide equitable access to this learning platform for everyone. So I'm going to ask you to bear with us a little bit. We're getting to that point, and we're working on it, but we understand you would need it before August 4th, and we'll try to get that to you as soon as we can prior to August 4th. Let me see, is there a possibility? Okay. By what date can you, I think I just answered that. Let's see, the earlier the better. I agree, and we will try to get it to you as early as we possibly can. The last part of that question was, anything different in terms of virtual learning for kindergarten compared to 1 through 5? Absolutely. The amount of time that we can expect a 5-year-old to sit in a synchronous session is going to be different than what we can expect a 5th grader to sit in. The type of activity that we can give asynchronously for a 5th grader is going to be significantly different than what we can do for a 5th grader. So in terms of the amount of time students are going to spend doing things school related at those 2 grade levels, developmentally, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to expect the same amount of time in that day from a kindergartner, or the same duration of time in a single session from a kindergartner that we could from a 5th grader. So it will look different, and that will be purposeful, and that will be based on what we believe is best for those children and what gives them the best opportunity to continue to stay engaged and be motivated about learning in this environment. Okay, let me read it. This is working families on our compound whose children attend the British school where teaching for all classes, including specials and PE, was live, found the balance and transition easier than those of us at AES who had to work all day and then do the school work with our children in the evening. Again, we're committed to doing based upon what our mission statement is, what we believe about education, what we believe about kids developmentally. We're gonna design our program that way. I can understand that it likely would not look exactly like what another school may have. And again, we want to work. We're looking at all the time zones. We're looking at all the things that we can do to try to make this as consistent and yet as equitable for everybody as we possibly can. I think we'll have more information on what online classes are going to look like on the 27th for you. I would ask you to bear with us and wait for some more detail on that on the 27th. We are at the end of the scheduled hour at this point. I appreciate everyone's questions. I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you. As we stated in the beginning of this, we believe that our students' academic success is a collaborative venture where the entire community has to be involved in supporting that. And this is one of the ways that we're going to do it, is by consistently communicating on a consistent basis openly with you, fielding your questions, taking your feedback. I'm confident in saying that when August 4th rolls around, there will be things that clearly have been implemented from parent feedback. So, I appreciate the time. I'm looking forward to being there, and I look forward to having all your kids in our Campus Connected Learning August 4th. And I think that'll wrap up our webinar for today, and we'll look forward to the future ones.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.